What I'm seeing is a university synonymous of institution connected to society, without the boundary, with a much more role in the different discussions of the challenges that the society is facing, and with a much more support, not only financial, but support from society to make sure that we are facing the different challenges in a proper way and in a professional way. That's my dream.
Hello, and welcome to the Future of University podcast series. My name is Todd Davey, Associate Partner at UIN and your host for today. Joining us is Ignacio Sanchez Díaz, a distinguished rector and professor at the Pontificia Universidad Católica de Chile. With a rich tapestry of roles in academia, he's a driving force in reshaping the future of education. Listen in as we explore the evolution of education, the power of interdisciplinary collaboration, and the pivotal role universities play in fostering a more humane and compassionate society.
It is a great privilege for me to be talking to Ignacio Sanchez Díaz. He is the rector and professor at the School of Medicine at the Pontificia Universidad Católica de Chile. He is also a part of the Council of Rectors of Chilean Universities, the chair of the Chilean chapter of Catholic Universities on the International Federation of Catholic Universities, as well as the vice president for the southern region of the Organization of Catholic Universities of Latin America and the Caribbean. Welcome today, Ignacio.
Thank you so much, Todd. It is a pleasure for me to have this conversation about all the experience that we have been taking in the past few years. The years that, at least in Chile, after political revolts that we have in 2019, then it came the pandemic. So for the past 3 years, or 3.5, it has been a really challenging time. And if we can share our experience, I'll be glad.
Ignacio, I would love to kick it off with just a quick reflection on your behalf. I just want to understand a little bit about some of the effects that the COVID pandemic had on your university, or what you observed generally in terms of its effect on higher education.
For us, COVID, as in the majority of the countries, was a really difficult time between March 2020 and September 2021. It was a very difficult time because we had to make sure that all the students can have the proper connectivity. That was a challenge initially. Some of our students didn't have the capacity to get remote teaching. Also, we had to make sure that everyone could have this financial support because there was welfare, there was poverty, there were a lot of issues. You have to remember that close to 60% of our students, they do need financial help to pursue the studies. And in Chile, the economy was really hit by COVID. So we were making sure two main areas. How was our university community? We have about 35,000 students and more than 10,000 between professors and staff. So it's a community of 45,000 people. And as a president of the university, you have to make sure that all of this community was doing a good job during the first months of a pandemic. And also, we have to devote our work to make sure that the needs of the country were accomplished, particularly in the case of the pandemic, where we have a big medical center. This is one of the biggest hospitals in the country. And also, we have more technology and we have more development in different procedures, etc. We have the biggest intensive care unit in the country, both for adults and also for children. So we were very busy receiving patients from all over the country and making sure that the new technologies to rotate the position of the ventilated patient, etc., were taught to the different hospitals. So in all of that, we were very busy and very connected, I would say, to other universities and also to the Minister of Health and Education. Then all the vaccination process, because in our university, we conducted several clinical trials to test the different vaccines. And I would say the work that this university did in conjunction with the different universities in the country were very important to give information about the safety and the effect of the vaccines. In Chile, we receive about 5 to 6 different vaccines that were tested by our researchers.
Fantastic. What I wanted to explore a little bit was some of the limitations that the pandemic exposed in higher education. You mentioned, obviously, when it came to connectivity for students and the fact that 60% of students need some sort of help in paying their educational fees. I just wanted to explore that a little bit more. What sort of limitations has emerged during the time of COVID in higher education as we know it today?
I thought one of the limitations were that the majority of the professors and also the students didn't have much experience on the platforms like Zoom, Meet, or any of the platforms that we were using. It was very astonishing how in 1 or 2 weeks we did have thousands of students and professors being connected. The university didn't stop the work, never. And we have a lot of innovation processes. We have a lot of tutorials and self-teaching. We were helping both professors and students to go on this new technology. Second issue was how to change the practical issues, let's say in chemistry or physics. There were a lot of changes in virtual labs that were accomplished in a few months. Also, the simulation for the health careers. Of course, simulation was something that we were working for several years, but there was a very positive impact of the pandemic to resolve those issues. One of the main problems were the labs with biological samples, because we have to make sure that everything was properly cared. And we were asking for permission. The universities have to be open for a very few but very important group of people. We were using this kind of capsules. A person was taking contact with a very few group of people. We wanted to encapsulate if any infection arises. You have to remember that the older people were more sick, and we do have a big proportion of professors and staff that are older than 60 years old. So we have to protect them. Lastly, I will say that my main effort as a president, the vice presidents, the directors, the deans, etc., was to keep the communication with the people. One thing was to make sure that the teaching lessons, the tutorials, everything was done. But another thing was to meet in a regular basis. Like I was having meetings with the deans every 2 weeks. I was having virtual meetings with staff in a monthly basis, also with professors. It was an open communication through the mail, through WhatsApp chats, etc., to make sure that the connectivity was not broken. We knew that there were a lot of family and personal issues that people had to share. In Chile, during the whole pandemic, close to 60,000 people died, and 3.5 million of persons got the disease. So thousands of persons in different families were sick. We knew that depression, the uncertainty, fear was part of the day-to-day living condition of our community. So we made the best effort to be informed about what was going on. Today looked like it was so many years ago, but no, it was just 2 years ago that we were suffering a very severe pandemic with a lot of fear and a lot of uncertainty that as a director of a university we have to accomplish.
I'm struck by the amount of commentary that you are sharing about concern for the wider population. Some of the positives that came out of COVID, what did that expose as an opportunity for higher education, in your opinion?
For sure, the online teaching and connectivity has to be taken into account and improved. We have a campus in the southern part of Chile. We have a network of research stations across the country. And for sure, right now, the connectivity is much more fluent than before. Many of the meetings between staff, directors, committees, etc., it is still doing by electronic platforms. Although we want to make sure that the campus are full of students and full of professors. We really believe that the universities do need to have this connectivity in this discussion, daily discussion between professors and students in order to live a real university. But for sure, the tutorials, the different teaching or different seminars, the capacity of getting international professors for seminars has been much more facilitated through this system. The discussion that we are having now, probably without this, we couldn't do it before. Now, there is something that we have to perhaps discuss, and this is the evaluation process. We did have some issues to evaluate properly the students that we got in the past 2 years in schools that were also closed. They were the last 2 years of school age at home. So they didn't have enough socialization. So we have to teach again to give confidence, to make certain rules, to make sure that they can start again doing the university life inside or on-site in the campus. We have been seeing certain difficulties in the day-to-day living conditions between the students. The social media sometimes do affect the relationship between them, mental health, and are challenges that we have to face. But perhaps one of the positive issues is that this is not taboo anymore. When you say we have to tackle the mental health of the whole community, not only the students. Right now, it's a different approach than 2 or 3 years ago, where you didn't want to talk much about this issue because you were shy of even mention the problem.
That's fascinating when you talk about the effect of students not having enough socialization given the pandemic in their period of high school that you then have to confront once they enter a higher education. And also mental health. I think there's a lot of positives that have come out of that and the understanding of that within a university context. Wanted to just now start jumping into the topic that you wrote about for the Future Universities Thought book, Time of Crisis. You made a contribution that talked quite deeply about the role that universities have in creating a more humane society. I just wanted you to expand a little bit on that. How can they participate in the development of a more humane society?
Yeah, this is a very broad topic and a very interesting one. Our university is very immersed in the society. I mean, in Chile, the universities are playing very important roles, not only in making sure that the best professionals and the best scientists or artists are going into society, but also creating new knowledge, transferring this knowledge to society, and particularly getting commitment to what the main society issues or problems are present. In Chile today, we have 3 or 4 main issues that the universities are working, and our university particularly, to make more human society. The first one is that we do have social cohesion that is difficult. For the past 30, 40 years, the development of the country has been separating different groups, the groups that are having more goods and the groups that are remaining in poverty, and this tension is very tough. Second one, we have a very long time, more than 2 centuries, issue with our first native aboriginal people, particularly in the southern part of Chile. The third issue is that we do have 2.5 years of process for a new constitutional law. The first proposal last year was rejected for the population, so now we are facing the second proposal, and the university is playing an important role on that. And lastly, we are conducting our best effort to present to Chile a Center for Peace and Dialogue. So those 4 initiatives, cohesion, the native population, the migrants, the new constitutional law, are wrapping, I would say, in this proposal of a Center for Peace and Dialogue, where we would like to make sure that in an interdisciplinary way, we tackle all those problems, not only inside the university, but also attracting different leaders from outside the university in the country and also internationally. So those examples presented, I would say, a university that is very connected to the needs of the society and is very open to discuss all issues. We don't want to have just one through. We want to have a variety of opinions, a discussion. And we think that in these days, the universities are places where you can invite people to discuss issues in a different way compared to the way they discuss at the parliament, at the social media, at the communication media. So then you can start with the similarities, and then you go into the discrepancies or into the different positions, but approaching first the similarities that are so important to reach certain consensus or to reach certain agreements.
I think it was really important, one of your recent comment about inviting people to discuss, but in a different way to the way they might discuss in Parliament, social media, etc. Do you have any specific formats that you have used in order to undertake this sort of discussion?
Our first approach is to be very honest, very open, and to say we open the university to discuss this issue. Make sure that you are going to be respect. Make sure that everyone will listen to you. Any topic can be discussed in our university, provided that you respect different opinions, that you respect human dignity. Our seminars, our meetings are completely open to the students, to the people outside the university. There's nothing that is close to our community. And if you live in Chile, almost every day in the newspaper, in the radio, in the TV, there are many information coming from the university system that is approaching different issues in pensions, in education, in health, in the international conflicts, in the migration process in the country, in security. You can see a university system that is fully connected to the problems of the society. So people are not looking the universities like foreign institutions. They are looking universities like our institutions that are very committed to what is going on in the country. The latest polls in the past 2 years after pandemia, like 70% of people, they were saying which are the institutions that are more important for the country, and universities are number one. And this is because, I guess, in the times where for society were the more difficult times, the universities were committed to work in the pandemia, to work in different issues in education, in economy, in the vaccine process, etc.
It's interesting, some of your comments, given what is happening in some of the Anglo-Saxon countries in respect to universities and the question marks that are being raised increasingly around whether the high fees of the university are actually worthwhile, and questioning the role of the university in society. I think there's some really good rules that you've outlined there. I wanted to pick up a little bit about how universities can be more connected with their society. I wondered if you could provide for other leaders out there some steps that you think that they could undertake in a practical way if they wanted to move in this direction.
For us, it was crucial to organize all this commitment to society in different centers for public policy, a center of the evaluation of the economy, a center of evaluation of education. But these centers that are interdisciplinary and they have an open door to what is going on in different universities, what is going on at the public level, at the private level, with the industry, etc. Once you have certain organization and centers, then you go much beyond the proper university and you face your action from the university to the society and in a vice versa way. Those centers also do have very strong international connections, and that's crucial. That's why this international university network and different groups of universities that work together are so important, because our experience could be different from the experience in Brazil or in Europe or in the States. So you always learn about different experiences. And our key is to involve the students, not only in the undergrad, but also postgraduate, doctoral students. It's crucial because you always have to promote this interaction between professors and students, where you renew the knowledge in a persistent way. In the university, we have people as young as 17 years and as old as 85 years. And all of this group of persons are working together. And the 85 years of age is renewing his or her view in the interaction with the students. Perhaps you always have to mention the resources issue. I guess there is a commitment from the government and also from the private sector to understand that the university do need resources to make sure that we can accomplish the role and the task that the society asks for us. In our country, close to 70%, 70 of the budget is coming from tuition fees from undergrad and postgraduate students. And only 30% are coming from philanthropy, state money, different actions from the university. There is a need to understand as a country that if you ask for the university to do everything that we have been discussing during this conversation, someone has to make sure that the universities can accomplish that. That's why it's so important, the philanthropy, the commitment of the alumni, these kind of conversations or seminars.
I picked up a number of points, both for university leaders as well as those at the policy level from what you've just said about how to make universities more connected to their community. So the first one being involvement of students in a very serious way to allow the full spectrum of political views, understanding your local context as a university, understanding the constituents in your region and the issues that they're facing, having international connections and knowledge sharing, the importance of interdisciplinary institutes, and then finally the note for policy makers that the resources that are provided to universities are sufficient enough to be able to enable them to have those specific roles in our community. Some really good insights there. And I just wanted to finish with one final question. And that is, Ignacio, if you could create a vision for universities in 5, 10, 15 years' time, considering this role that you've described and the role that it could play in developing a more humane society, what might it look like? I've built up to the difficult question.
Yeah, the difficult question is to predict the future. I guess if we follow this commitment between universities and society, if we open the universities as we are opening the institutions now, the governments, the private sector, the public sector are going to know what we are doing inside the universities, and they're going to trust much more in this common work that we are facing. And I'm saying this because many times I see comments like, I didn't know that the universities were so involved in this, or I didn't know that the universities were much more connected to different communities. So there is a lack of knowledge of what we are doing, as well as we don't know much about what is the internal work that the private sector is doing. So the connectivity of the universities in the society is something that has to be strengthened to move ahead on what we are doing. Opening of the teaching experiences for society is much more flexible now. And a student finishes his undergrad years and then goes to work, and then 2 years later come back to the university to do a master's degree on a short course, etc. What I'm seeing is a university synonymous of institution connected to society, without the boundary, with a much more role in the different discussions or the challenges that the society is facing, and with a much more support, not only financial, but support from society to make sure that we are facing the different challenges in a proper way and in a professional way. That's my dream.
It's a very nice way to wrap up, Ignacio. I just want to take this opportunity to thank you for your time today. I think you've provided some absolutely fantastic insights into how we can move in this direction as a university, higher education sector, how we can develop a more humane society and the sort of role that universities can play in that.
It was a pleasure to discuss some topics about our work in higher education and particularly the challenges that we are facing. Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to today's discussion. Follow UIIN on LinkedIn, and if you're enjoying our podcast, make sure to subscribe, rate, and review in your podcast platform of choice to help other people find this content too.